And what else is interesting, we'll pivot to this, Tyus Jones, now with Phoenix Sun. I've seen you talk about it on your channel, Locked On Suns. I've talked about it on my channel. How much better are the Phoenix Suns? Are they championship contender? That's the golden question. That's all anyone cares about. Is team making it to the first or second round? That's not something anyone is even worried about. Are they a legitimate championship contender? And how much better are they? Because you have to remember, this is a team that had championship aspirations, but didn't win a single playoff game. That's how far away they were. They didn't just fail. They told their parents they were going to get an A on the test and got an F. They didn't even pass. That's how bad it was. How much better are they with Tyus Jones? Is it considerably? Is it marginally? Where's it at for you?
Yeah, I guess I don't look at it as exactly because of Tyus, but if you take the whole offseason in total, right, I think it did two things. One of them has to do with the on-court product. One of them has to do with the hypothetical future on-court product. I think that they raised their floor, especially as a regular season team, by a lot. Last year, the buzzword from James Jones was mid-prime veterans, the names that most Suns fans have probably already flushed down their memory. Keita Bates-Diop, Jordan Goodwin, Chimezie Metu, Yuta Watanabe, guys that had done well on bad teams and needed an opportunity to prove it on a good team. Well, none of them proved it. They all ended up out of the rotation or on other teams by the end of the season. So what the Suns did, I think, smartly this year is they went out and got vets to fill those positions. Before Tyus, they already were doing that. Mason Plumlee, Monte Morris, obviously keeping Royce O'Neal. You could trace that back to February as a step toward this whole thing in the first place. Retain Josh Okogie, retain Damian Lee, all veteran players. Bol probably the only exception to that, and I think most Suns fans would have said, you got to keep him, so no one would have argued there. And then the other thing that they did with this offseason that gets us a little bit ahead of ourselves, but I think it's part of what the Tyus move will allow them to do is they manufactured basically flexibility that the CBA, the second apron, all these, monsters circulating in the NBA world that are scaring all these teams. They created flexibility without basically having it. They have all these contracts now, whether you're talking about Nurkic, O'Neal, Allen, Okogie, that they can trade. They kept their first-round pick out 7 years from now instead of just throwing it at the first thing that they could. And I think the reason that connects to the Tyus Jones signing is they have options on the court now and depth in the rotation where if they realize, hey, having a point guard, yes, it's going to make us smaller, all these questions remain, but on the whole, that's actually the best version of our team. Okay, what do we do from there? Does that change the type of center that we might want to have? Does that change maybe we can afford to have more defensive guys because the ball is in these players' hands more and he can afford to be out there? Whatever the observations are going to be as they stack this thing up over the first couple months, they already had the flexibility to make those moves. Tyus Jones didn't really change that, but what he did is he created this window where now they have another piece, another really good player to maneuver any direction that they want to without sacrificing crap. Okay, yeah, we made that trade, but we just lost a rotation player. Grayson Allen is really good. We can't just give him up for something else because we need him. Well, maybe they don't need him now as much or somebody like him because they were able to get a steal in Tyus Jones who they probably never thought they would get.
Yeah, the Tyus Jones thing, you mentioned on your show, you'd basically said, I have to apologize. I didn't think this was ever possible. I don't think you should apologize. I don't think anyone thought Tyus Jones was a possibility. Anytime someone brought it up, it was someone that was probably little uneducated in how salaries work and just how hamstrung the Phoenix Suns were. A lot of this credit has to go to Matt Ishbia. And I'll ask you this. It's a double-edged sword. We talked about it today on the radio, The Drive with Jody Ayler. I'm the producer on that show. We were talking about it earlier today. And we were basically spitballing around. It's kind of a double-edged sword, right? You get the too involved owner, it can be an issue. We all love it right now because it seems like he was the guy really full steam ahead trying to get Tyus Jones. But is it a little concerning that Matt Ishbia, there wasn't any word of James Jones going after this guy. It was Budenholzer. It was Matt Ishbia. It was Josh Barlstein. I mean, does it worry you that Matt Ishbia still seems to be a little too hands-on, even if he's ready to spend all of his money at any waking moment he can?
Worry is is the right word, I think, because it's not always a bad thing to have a very involved owner. And, most of what I've ever heard from the most plugged in people across any sport is the dirty secret of all of this is almost every single one of these owners is pretty involved. It's just a matter of how much, how public they are about it and everything else. So it doesn't worry me in a vacuum to say Matt Ishbia is the final call and maybe the first call on all these things until it is, right? The minute he screws something up, we'll all say, yeah, we're worried, that sucks. Why did you do it that way? How could you be the meddlesome guy you are? You're so bad at this. But until then, getting Kevin Durant, I don't think most Suns fans are going to complain about. The Beal thing, I think we'll hit on in a moment, and you could go a bunch of directions on if that was the right move. But spending a lot, committing to the franchise, these are all things that you want to do. And if the cost of that is, hey, the guy's going to also want to have a major say in all of it, I guess that's just kind of what comes with the territory. But you're absolutely right. With all due respect, I think James Jones has done a very good job resetting all of this. Probably underrated among Suns fans overall, but I don't think we should think of him as the final decision maker on any of this. If you want to criticize moves that get made, it should be Ishbia. And I guess likewise, if you want to congratulate the team for making some good move, probably give that to him too. But this is a Matt Ishbia show for sure.
But James Jones is kind of a lame duck guy, and I would agree with you. I think for most part, he has done a good job. But you look at the general manager, you're always going to blame that. It's one of the reasons why I believe they haven't gotten rid of him, is because I believe Matt Ishbia looks at James Jones and says, this guy just does whatever we say. What's the difference? The other guy might not do it. That's always been the interesting thing with James Jones. Pivoting over to the Bradley Beal thing, I've been called every name in the book. I feel like, I know you'd mentioned, someone you'd had on your show had mentioned this months ago. I'd also mentioned it after the Sacramento Kings game. I can't remember exactly when it was. When Malik Monk just went nuclear on the Phoenix Suns. The Suns still won that game, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. I went on the air the next day, and I had said, that's Bradley Beal's role. That's Bradley Beal's role, is Malik Monk. Bradley Beal's never been a part of a winning culture, including this year. We're not a winning culture. He doesn't really know how to win outside of scoring the basketball. And I love Bradley Beal. He's one of my favorite players in the NBA, not on the Phoenix Suns when he wasn't here. I was ecstatic when they got him. But it's clearly not working. I don't know if you saw what I put out there. I talked about it on Saturday on Fox Sports 910. I'd basically mentioned I watched it. It didn't work. Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, it's too much redundancy with 5 guys on the floor sharing one basketball. It's important in this business to admit when you're wrong. I thought it was going to work swimmingly. I thought you double down on the mid-range assassins. You throw more firepower at it. Teams aren't going to be able to keep up. And I realized a month into the season, that was wrong. You add Tyus Jones to that mix, who has a clear role, which we talked about earlier, a facilitator, a guy that can actually get Kevin Durant and Devin Booker involved. If you would ask me, I think Tyus Jones is a better version of Chris Paul in his final season with the Phoenix Suns. He knows exactly what he is. He's a catch-and-shoot guy. He's a better shooter than Chris Paul. You move Bradley Beal to the bench, and I understand the argument has always been, well, you're paying him $50 million. Brendon, I don't care. I don't care what they're paying him. He's still going to make $50 million on the bench, and if he doesn't like it, buddy, waive your no-trade clause. See what's out there. It's going to be nothing. The best version of this team is all I've ever been interested in, and I believe the best version of this team is a combination of Bradley Beal going to the bench. I understand Tyus Jones is smaller than Bradley Beal, but then you insert Royce O'Neal, is a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker than Bradley Beal, definitely the better defender. And you're able to put people in places where they're at their best to succeed. Takes the pressure off of Bradley Beal, who's still going to play 30 minutes a night, 35 minutes a night, might still close some games as well, most games when they need a bucket. And he can just be Wizards Bradley Beal off the bench. I know it won't happen. I'm not that naive. I'm saying that this is the best version of the Phoenix Suns. Am I crazy?
No. If we're kind of agreeing that the actual practical Coach Bud sits Beal down in his office and tries to have that conversation with him is not realistic, then I can connect with elements of the argument you're making. But you said Wizards Bradley Beal, and then earlier you said too much overlap. So, one, there's different eras of Wizards Bradley Beal. The guy's been in the league a long time, and what he was asked to do on those teams has been very different. It's a long time ago. He's had a lot of injuries since then. It's not going to be one-to-one. But I do look at the John Wall Wizards years, the first 4 seasons of Beal's career, let's say. That guy, I would push back and tell you, did do what was necessary to play within a team that almost made the conference finals one year. And getting back to, or getting to a new version of that type of Bradley Beal, I think would reduce the overlap you're talking about, right? And that's the mission for him. Because, even the idea of him being just a scorer off the bench, that's not, really that valuable still for a team that has so much offense, right? Malik Monk's a good example. He's very valuable, but it's kind of more of the same over there too, right? So this idea of Bradley Beal coming in and, getting buckets, well, they're going to have no short supply of buckets between Grayson Allen already being on this roster and the 2 superstars at the top of this whole thing. So no matter what happens, where anybody's playing in the rotation or what position or any of it, these 3 guys being together, for them to fit, they're going to have to sacrifice and evolve their games, period. They're going to have to do things that superstar players don't always do, that they may not love to do. And that's going to be the only chance they have to win a championship. Kevin Durant, rebound and protect the rim more than maybe is comfortable for you. Devin Booker, guard wings on the ball like you did at times in the postseason in the past. Bradley Beal, take more threes, cut, play off the ball as a scorer. Also, guard player. We saw him guard Zion last year. There's going to be more of that coming, right? And all of you guys, please communicate and try to lead this whole thing. And, some team defense, some efficient low turnover basketball would be nice on top of it, right? That's the mission no matter what any of the rest of it looks like. And so I just kind of don't think that Beal going to the bench really solves those problems as much as people think. That's the other reason besides, hey, he's never going to agree to it, that makes me feel like it wouldn't be a fix.
That's totally fair. Do you think we're even negotiating this if he's not a $50 million a year man? Or do you think if he's a $10 million a year man, are we saying, yeah, get to the bench? This fits better. Is it just clearly the money? Which I understand.
He's overpaid, right? I think we all would agree. He's older, injury prone. The contract he got at the time was unnecessary. They extended him way before they needed to for way more than they needed to in Washington. But there's no world where he's a $10 million player, right? If he's properly paid in a vacuum, what would we say? 30? 40?
That's fair.
35? 30. 30. Okay. That's good starter Drew Holiday money or so, right? Jarek White money. That's kind of the range we're talking at that point. Maybe a guy like that could come off of the bench, but again, you would still be asking those types of players to play more like Derek White and Drew Holiday, right? Which is kind of what I'm saying that Beal needs to embrace, and that's where I come down.